Welcome to the Future Smart Parent Podcast, a place where my mom explores how to help us kids develop a new set of skills we need to face the future with confidence.
I'm Jude Fulston, an introverted mom trying my best to raise kids who are happy and confident, kids who embrace all that makes them unique while preparing them for an exciting future that really looks nothing like the world we grew up in. I believe there's a whole set of skills that our kids aren't being taught. These skills will be critical for them to develop in order to thrive in the future. It's up to us as parents to help them develop these skills. The Future Smart Parent Podcast provides resources for parents and kids who want to be ready for all the ways in which the future is going to be different from today. We will explore this future together, bringing insights from top futurists, resources from smart people working on making our lives better, and most importantly, stories of parents who are parenting a little differently, yet very much intentionally for a changing world. So join me as we explore how we can be future smart parents raising future smart kids. So welcome to today's episode of the Future Smart Parent Podcast. Today I have the privilege of chatting with Melanie Williams. Melanie is a career counselor and gap year specialist who emerged from a high school teaching background with some sanity, I'm not too sure how, intact, and who just has a real passion for working with young adults. So welcome, Melanie.
It's good to be here, Jude. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I am super excited to chat to you about gap years. So I know that you do career counseling,
Yes.
but my interest is the gap year. So to kick off, I really would like just to get your thoughts on, well, two things: the benefits of school leavers taking a gap year, and then also, like, is a gap year for everyone, or who would you say would benefit the most from a gap year, if we can kind of start with that?
I don't think a gap year is for everyone. I don't go around saying, yeah, you should take a gap year, everyone should take a gap year. I really don't believe that. If a student finishes school and is very clear about what they want to do, whether they want to go work in a bank, or start their own little dog walking business, or go and study social work or graphic design, and they've done their research, they've job shadowed during high school, they're pretty clear, they're confident, and they do the applications and they get accepted, they need to go. They need to go and pursue their passion and get their degree or qualification or diploma or whatever they need. And so for them, no, a gap year is irrelevant. I mean, I think that the benefit that they would have is perhaps later they could travel with their qualification and probably earn much more than a gap year student would who's just left school. So, that's another way of looking at it. But a gap year really, Jude, is for those who are not sure, And the reason why I wrote the Good Gap Year Guide was because I started meeting parents and students who had either started studying and had dropped out after their first and second year, realizing, oh no, this is not what I want to do. Oh, what now? And so I sort of tried to backpedal, Jude, and think about why is this happening and what was necessary for them, perhaps during their school time, to eliminate this lack of knowledge. And just kind of thinking about it and thinking about my own students that I had the privilege of teaching as a school counselor and a life orientation teacher, I started thinking about what needed to be in place. And not all schools will be able to offer these things. And so that's why, for those who are not sure, a gap year is a great way to go. Obviously, we want them to grow in confidence. Whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, a structured gap year is going to boost their confidence. They're going to clarify their interests. They're going to taste the real world. And they're going to also realize that there is a place for them, that they can flourish, but it takes a bit of time to figure that out.
Do you think it takes a change in mindset of parents to let their kids take a gap year rather than just pushing them into the traditional university to say, no, you must study now? I think parents can often get quite concerned that if you take a gap year, then you're never going to study again.
Absolutely. I think that, our traditional mindset is either the super rich get to do a gap year. Prince Harry comes and he spends a year in Lesotho building fences or whatever. Or, a super wealthy kid gets to go off and do whatever they do in Europe and then come back after a year and study. That's the one extreme. And then the other extreme is, your ordinary kid takes a gap year and lies on the couch watching Netflix for a year and gaming through the night. That's not a gap year. And so those are the two perceptions that need to be broken. I think that a gap year can be super beneficial if it's structured and carefully planned and has elements in it that we'll discuss later, I'm sure. Yeah, and I think it's trying to help parents understand that is what a gap year is. It's a structured, well-planned year with an end in mind.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was lucky enough to have a gap year, and I remember being at the Port Elizabeth airport and I just turned 18, and I think my folks were quite brave to let me go not on my own. I went with another friend. We almost missed our flight from PE to Joburg because I think I might have flown in a plane once before.
Yeah.
There were no, now I'm showing my age, but there were no cell phones.
Yeah.
We didn't have access to email. I remember phoning my dad from Barcelona from a phone box, and if he was so relieved that I'd managed to get hold of him, because if he missed the 2-week slot that I used to phone, like that was that. And I look now, I was doing some research online for gap years, and it does seem hell of a structured, which on one hand is amazing, but on the other hand, I'm like, are we protecting our kids too much, or are we doing too much for them? Because I don't know. So I guess my question is, how is a gap year different now in 2023 from when I took a gap year a million years ago? Has it changed? I suppose there's pros and cons of where we are now, but what does a gap year kind of look like now?
I also got to do, and I wouldn't say it's a gap year, kind of after I studied and taught for a while, I got to go and teach abroad. So I'd consider that my sort of adult gap year. And so I'm hearing you and feeling where you're at. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that a year ago, you did a really interesting podcast with Dani from Young Entrepreneurs. And Dani was speaking to parents about challenging our mindsets and broadening our way of thinking because our world is so different. Your question about how different is it now? Well, there are three things that I think are very different between this generation and when we had a gap year. I think first of all, the whole connection thing is real. It's hugely helpful. We've got a web and internet, and that just makes everything easier in terms of travel. We can book an Airbnb online. We can do couch surfing. We can do workaway. We can just get ourselves all organized before we even hop in that plane, kind of thing. Finances for parents, they can just EFT. There's just a whole lot of things that are easier. And then even being mentored. I feel strongly about having a mentor in your gap year, and that can be online. You can have a mentor based in, Hawaii, and you could be based in Alaska, and they could be mentoring you. So the connection is there, and that's a huge advantage. And then conscience. I just feel like as much as we understand where we come from and our background and our pursuit for justice, this generation has a very sensitive conscience. They're very aware of justice in the world. They're very aware of environmental issues. And I think that's also in their favor. So the differences perhaps between them and us is certainly the connectivity and the technology, which has massive advantages. And then just the fact that they're conscientized. I think that they're aware of their carbon footprint, etc. And coupled with that is authenticity. I think that they're the real deal. And I think that's why I enjoy working with young adults, is just because they can see through the nonsense, And I do think you're right about parents needing to negotiate this whole process. Parents have so much power. In a privileged environment, parents have the transport, the Wi-Fi, and the money, and those are tools that they can use to negotiate. Negotiating a year that is structured and complies with various rigorous agreements, which sounds a bit OCD, but it's necessary, or else the fear of your child sitting on the couch doing nothing is very real. And I'm talking about parents across the board, from super simple to very wealthy backgrounds. We can all negotiate on that level for a structured gap year.
I think that's what I love the most about your framework. It kind of makes a gap year accessible to everyone.
and not
Yeah, it
just because
does.
I still perceive a gap year as for the wealthy, and that
Yes,
it's
a
kind of
luxury.
going
Yeah,
a luxury, and it involves travel, and your parents will buy your ticket. Which I think that's the best thing ever, is that now it has become so much more accessible and clever for, there's many families that putting a kid through university or college or whatever is a hell of a financial
yes,
responsibility and
yes,
stretch. And so to not just throw your kids into university for the sake of it, or because that's your goal, to then give them the structured gap year, that's the privilege, I suppose, and available to across the board. So tell me, tell me what your advice to the kids is. What does a structure look like
yeah.
in your opinion?
I think that I'll work with sort of a year framework, but obviously everyone's flexible and adaptable. I think that ideally a gap year will include 6 aspects, and I kind of use a symbol of a hand just to capture that. So in the
Yeah.
palm of your hand is having a mentor, and that's the first thing I write about in my book, just about having someone with whom you check in on a monthly basis. And that can be anyone that the student looks up to, that the young person looks up to. It can be a sports coach, could be a youth pastor, can be your friend's auntie, anyone who is a little older, a little wiser, and who you respect. And they don't have to be qualified mentors or anything. They just have to be humans that you respect and who agree to meet up with you once a month just to hear how you're doing and to hear how things are going, what's working, what's not working. And there's a whole chapter on that in the book, just about questions that the mentor can ask, what the mentor's not responsible for, etc., just so that if you want to mentor someone and journey with them, you don't have to be, PhD in psychology, just a human listening.
I love that you've got a section specifically for that, because I think it's difficult to know how to
Yes,
ask someone to be a
yes,
mentor. You kind of feel,
yes,
do I need to pay you? Do I need to
exactly,
have
exactly.
specific questions? And so I think having a guideline for both the mentor and the mentee is
Yes.
amazing.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you. Yeah,
so
no, it's
that's
just it's
great.
basic and practical. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a school counselor and I'm a career counselor. And when I wrote this book, I actually went and did a mentoring course just so that I knew I wasn't
Wow.
talking rubbish.
Yeah.
And I found that
Yeah.
one of the best pieces of advice I was given by another mentor was just show up. Show up, and
Yeah.
that really helped me. It's just and so showing up once a
Sure.
month to listen to the person on their gap years is really great. So having a mentor, really important.
Yeah.
And then, so meeting with that person once a month and then being in contact with them, perhaps on social media once a week, it's just a really good motivation and check-in. And
Yeah.
then the other 5 aspects are sort of the normal loose aspects of a gap year that I think should be in a gap year. And so obviously the one is going to be generating an income. And parents need to hear this. Students need to hear this. It's not about receiving, it's about earning. And so that needs to be an integral part of the gap year. Whether you are driving pizzas around, which some people are privileged enough to be delivering pizzas, or if you're walking people's dogs or washing people's cars, working in the KFC or whatever, generating an income is vital just for so many skills that are learned. And there's a section on creating your CV, updating your CV, how to approach people, how to speak to them, how to hand over your CV, just really practical things that we hope we're taught in school, but it's really hard to teach that in a massive school system. Working is really important. And then secondly, job shadowing. As a career counselor, I can't emphasize how important that is. And that is such a great opportunity in your gap year. You get to job shadow people who are doing things you might be interested in. So perhaps I'm interested in being an underwater welder, and I can spend, a week learning from someone about how they weld underwater. Or perhaps I want to be a graphic designer, and I spend a week job shadowing somebody at a branding institute.
Yeah.
Again, it's just about why you can do that, how you can do that, how you can find your contacts. So that's a very practical chapter on that. Studying is really important as well. I mean, I'm not saying you should start your degree, but if you kind of have a sense of, hey, you know what, I'm probably going to go into the financial world, then there's nothing wrong with picking up, accounting one and blah, blah at UNISA and doing it online. The world has opened up,
Exactly.
exploded post-COVID with online offerings. So studying is just a great opportunity to keep your mind fresh.
And the beauty, I suppose the beauty of it is that you don't need to take a full year's course, right?
Precisely.
You can do a 6-week course here. You can do
Precisely.
and cover a whole variety of topics, which, which I suppose should be encouraged. Try your hand at different things.
Yes. And last year I had a gap year student who I was mentoring who thought she might be interested in agriculture, and she wasn't sure. And she was working on an organic farm, and then she did some online courses around growing herbs and herbs for healing and so on. And it just really helped her and opened her eyes and just gave her more opportunity and clarified her interest. So yes, as you say, Jude, there's so many beautiful short courses, so many for free on so many great websites like Udemy and MOOC, and EDX. It's just great opportunities. So studying is a great one, and then traveling. I put that last because it's not last. Sorry, there's one before it, but I'll come back to it. Traveling is the reward for your gap year, and I think it's the thing you can save towards. And that could be literally hopping into a luxury bus and driving, going to another province or another city in your own country. It doesn't have to be launching off in an airplane and going to another country, because not everyone's going to have that privilege. But if I catch a coach to another province and I go and stay with a friend of my auntie over there, I've learned so many skills just by organizing and saving up for that ticket. So traveling just also great in terms of broadening your confidence. And the one that I left out before traveling is volunteering. And as I said, this generation is highly authentic, very conscientized. They know what they're passionate about. So there's so many great NGOs that we can support through voluntary work. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, walking the puppies or washing the dogs, but I could perhaps be helping an organization improve their website. Or perhaps I could be sharing about them on my own social media platform and promoting them. So there are a whole lot of things I can be doing as a volunteer, and everything I do is building my network.
And skills and EQ and all of that.
And confidence.
I like that you include that as well, because I was quite surprised. As soon as you type in gap year into Google, it comes up with a lot of volunteering opportunities. But my goodness, it costs a lot to volunteer at many of these places.
So it becomes that like rich person's conscience.
Yes.
Like, oh, I'm going to go to Thailand, but I'm going to help the elephants. Like, okay, I'm not knocking that at all. Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities. And again, I think it's changing that mindset of there's a lot of opportunities. You don't have to pay to volunteer, like financial money. No. You can just volunteer.
And we have so many beautiful NGOs that are doing amazing work along all spheres, all people, children, animals, building houses, you name it, it's happening.
Yeah. What would your advice be we'll get to the young adults just now, but what would your advice be to the parents? Because as soon as you said, with the travel, I get a knot in my stomach because maybe I'm generalizing and I don't know enough young adults on gap years, but I automatically go to the parents organizing the travel for the kids and the parents finding volunteer opportunities for their kids, and I want to just scream and shout and go, no, you're missing like the beauty of all of this. So what is let me not harp on about it, what is your opinion on or advice for parents?
I think it must be so hard parenting, particularly post-COVID, where your children in high school were being released, kind of in grade 8 to 9, and then they got stuck back at home. And then I think I've seen students and parents regress, and that's understandable. And wanting to protect their children, and then the children getting high anxiety and lack of confidence as a result of that. And I've seen that a lot in my own career counseling practice, and friends share about it in the classroom and also in their therapeutic context. So it's a reality. The gift that we can give our children is confidence and independence. Obviously, they're going to play the victim card and play the dependent card and play the passive card because teenagers are smart. I mean, hello, we know how smart we were, and they're smarter. So I think it's really about earning the right to, literally earning their Wi-Fi, earning their phones, and earning the gap year. And so I also get really worried and concerned when I read about parents on social media sites asking about things on behalf of their children who are now third, fourth year students. And I know they're 2021 and I don't understand. And I do understand, but I don't understand. So yes, I think it's okay to step back from, we need to be doing that from grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, easing up.
I mean, one of the best pieces of advice that a colleague gave me was my child, I think I was pregnant or I just had my first daughter. And he said, you are raising these kids to leave you, like from day one. And it's always stuck with me. I mean, obviously age appropriate, but it almost just gave me that permission to, you know what? I mean, Layla was born in 2010, so there was it was the rugby, not the rugby, the soccer World Cup. And so when she was 2 weeks old, we dropped her off with this colleague of mine, well, his wife. And I was like, right, I'm preparing her to leave one day, and it's okay if I leave her for an hour. She's going to be okay. And it was good for me. So yes, I agree we need to start doing it, but we need to, as parents, and I think I'm talking as a mom to younger kids, like it's never too early, right? To help our kids earn and be independent. And this generation of parenting, I think, and myself included, we just do too much for our kids, right?
Yes, I've seen it. I was tutoring a student and I went into his home and he said to me, "Be careful, Melanie, there's a broken glass left over from a party last night." And then later on, his parents arrived and they swept up the glass. And I just thought, you're old enough to drink, but you're not sweeping up because you don't even think about it. And I don't blame, it's not a blaming or a judging thing. It's no. We're taking our children's power away, we're taking their power away. And so even when they're in high school and they do career counseling or they start exploring what careers they want to do, even in high school, parents can start encouraging them to job shadow and perhaps give them the first contact, but encourage them to make the call, and then you can take them to that place to job shadow. But after that, your child's confidence is going to be boosted and they can do the next call. And those are just ways of helping them gain confidence. And so when it comes to negotiating the gap year, it's not suddenly this new thing. You were doing all these things for your kids before, and now you're going, no, you're an adult. No. It needs to be gradual. And so booking a flight, they can do it. They can apply for their passport. They might ask for guidance and help, and maybe just we have to tell ourselves, I'm guiding, I'm helping, I'm not doing. And that's the tricky part.
Yeah, and just finding that balance. And it's okay. As parents, we're also learning. So maybe the first time,
it's a hard journey.
Give ourselves permission to do too much, but at least we're aware of it. I think that's it. It's just being aware of it, right?
I just read this book called Unbecoming, written by Joanne Fedler, and I just picked it up luckily, and it's about this whole letting go of kids. Unbecoming, just a really great story about realizing that we need to release our kids.
Yeah, and I mean, now I'm getting sidetracked, but just with the levels of anxiety with that these kids face, and then you go, okay, but we're not letting them achieve anything or do we're doing everything for them. So where's that confidence going to come from? It's going to result in anxiety. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. But it all ties into the benefits of a gap year and leading up to a gap year as well.
And having responsibility.
So just in a nutshell, your advice to parents?
Clear instructions and a clear agreement about a gap year. So this is what buy them the book and make them read it. No, don't make them read it. Buy them if they're talking gap year, they need to know what they're talking about. So inform them, perhaps share the book with them, and reach an agreement with your child. It's adult to adult agreement. These are the things that are going to be in your gap year, and this is how it's going to roll. And you are not providing money, and you're not. Yeah. Those things need to be discussed.
The next big thing with the gap year is how too many young adults are, I'm taking a gap year, and then, as you said earlier, end up on the couch watching Netflix and gaming and not doing anything with their year. And again, I don't think it's necessarily not necessarily their fault. So there's no judgment. It's kind of the few years that they've had and the limited exposure that they've had in the last critical years of being teenagers. So I get all of that. But how do we get across to the kids? What's your advice for the kids on you've got this one beautiful year and experience available to you, because of course you can have multiple gap years, but what is your advice to kids to make sure that they're not on the couch for 365 days?
And so that would be when you just plan out your year, so you would spend the first month or two finding your mentor and starting your job shadowing. And those aren't too difficult, because finding a mentor is not that difficult, because you're going to have folk in your network that you can ask to be a mentor. And then starting to job shadow people in industry that you're interested in. I think that's where you start. And you set yourself sort of a month or every 2 months a goal. And so perhaps by your second month, you want to have drawn up your CV. You want to be handing it out and applying. So, you want to be able to say to your parents and to your mentor, this month I'm focusing on this month I'm focusing on this. And great. The beauty is you can focus on what you want to focus on and what you're interested in. And so it's just setting little goals to do that. This week I'm going to distribute 50 CVs. I'm going to walk around this mall and that's what I'm going to do. Just those little things. I think those are great. And then, studying online, etc. Just setting yourself little goals. Yeah.
I suppose that goes hand in hand why those two are great to start off with, because it's the accountability that you will then have with the mentor to get the ball rolling, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
and you get your own ball rolling. You start job shadowing and then you meet other contacts and you keep going, So that, it's just really I think, as you said, Jude, the most important thing is to start and just to be committed for a month, and then your gap year will evolve and roll out beautifully.
I mean, it's cliched, but it is just taking that first step to get started. So,
and that first step can be just listening to this podcast, reading other people's opinions or reading about other people that have taken a good gap year.
So Mel, the great news for anyone who is listening to this podcast and who's interested in a gap year is that you have developed a resource specifically for this called the Good Gap Year Guide. Am I correct?
Yes, that's it. That's the one.
Okay. It sounds very practical and it just walks the young adults and I suppose the parents through the 6 elements of a good gap year.
Yes. And the mentor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will put the details into the show notes, but am I correct that people will need to email you to get a copy of the book?
That's right. And there are hard copies and there are also ebook versions, which are probably far easier to access. But they are welcome to email me. Just ask about the options available.
And you also, I think I'm correct to say that you also mentor people on their gap year.
Yes, I love mentoring students taking a gap year. So apart from doing career guidance and so on, I really enjoy mentoring students, meeting with them once a month as they journey through their gap year. It gives me great joy.
Brilliant. I will put all of your details in the show notes and we will share it. So just from my side, this is fascinating. I hope one day my kids take a gap year, and I will most definitely be using your resource. So thank you for putting the work in and just making it easier for parents and young adults to do this. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to staying in touch with you and chatting more.
Awesome. Jude, thanks for the opportunity and thanks for this amazing podcast, which is such a precious resource, and also going to promote your podcast in terms of empowering parents. It's very needed. Thank you for your vision.
Thank you. We will chat soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Future Smart Parent podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. As always, you can head over to www.futuresmartparent.com to sign up to our email list as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. That's all for this episode. See you next time.